Okay, let's just do a little bit of centering. Sit upright, if possible. Tense and relax your body 3 times with double breathing. And then do a little bit of pranayama. Let's do the triangular breath. Just inhaling for a certain amount of counts, your choice. Hold and then exhale for the same amount of counts. And then for a minute or so, just watch the breath. If you know the technique, just practice home solve for a minute or two. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Okay, so Shambhavi wanted the theme to be calmness, and I love the theme. I think it's a wonderful, very powerful, and also very practical subject to go into, to dive into. I see Surya with children. I see Shambhavi with a little boy. And Sonia, I think you have also worked with children, right? Or you still do? Yeah, I remember that. So we can sort of center it a little bit around the theme of children. But let's first look at look at the theme in the broader sense of the word. So when the first important thing to do is to distinguish between peace and calmness. Okay. So peace means the absence of conflict, the absence of disharmony. Calmness is something else. So I would like you to imagine, and it's a little grim, but you know, for the yogis, and we are all yogis here. Oh, I see Hansa's there too. Wonderful. She also has a child. So good to see you. All right. So for yogi, yoga basically teaches that life is a battlefield. Okay. One of the most important scriptures in yoga is Bhagavad Gita. It is set on a battlefield. Okay. Jesus speaks about how he came not to bring peace but to bring a sword. Okay. So there are plenty of examples where you see that if people want to be motivated and inspired spiritually, you have to use this kind of images, because when you think of a battlefield and a struggle or a fight to be won, then you sort of, and that you have the instruments, that your spiritual teacher, your spiritual teachings can give you instruments to fight the battle and to win the battle. And that helps, that gives us enthusiasm and inspiration and even joy. So when you look at the battlefield then, right, and there is a war going on, then there is no peace. Okay, but my question is, can there be calmness? The best soldiers on the battlefield are the ones who do not lose their centeredness. Okay, so when you have a very good soldier, it's the one who, of course, on a battlefield, and there's a lot of war going on now in the world, especially in Europe also. But good soldiers have somehow a calmness about them. The same with good leaders, the good military leaders. Okay, like they say about Napoleon, that his heartbeat was very, very slow. Like I don't know, but even in the middle of a battle, people could feel his heartbeat. He invited them to, and it was very slow. So that is calmness. So that in a situation of confusion, of emotional heat, of disharmony, there is something within us, okay, that sort of keeps the spine straight, and that keeps a sense of perspective from which to act or not to act. Okay, so it is also, calmness can also be seen as the absence of reactivity, of emotional reactivity. Something happens, for example, I remember just one example of my own life. In 2017, my dream had always been to take my two boys. They were then still boys, now they're young men, but to the United States, to America, because I am Dutch from Holland, and their mother is Italian, from Italy. And so they grew up in Italy, but of course, almost every year, if not every year, I took them to Holland. And so it was either her country or my country, right? And I wanted neutral ground because we had separated when they were still quite young. And my dream was to take them to a place that was neither hers nor mine, but where they could just find the vibration of newness, and something completely new to be discovered. So I had put aside money. This would be my dream, and I had prayed a lot, and somehow even unasked for donations came in to help me do this, right? And at a certain point, just like maybe 2 weeks before the departure, I get a letter from the revenue from Italy, the tax service in Italy, that I was behind like something like 5,000 or 6,000 euros, and that I needed to pay that. Okay, so that would have been the end of my dream. It would be a broken dream if I had to. So I felt within myself, because I had trained myself long enough, okay, the calmness to not react emotionally. And so I just, I meditated on it. I felt that nothing would keep me from taking my boys to the United States on an adventure trip. I followed some practical steps. So I went to our accountant here, and they helped me, and they said, yeah, you can pay in installments and go. And they explained that there was a lot of bureaucracy. I did everything. And so it was arranged that it would be paid in installments. And so, okay, I took them to the United States. And when I came, it was wonderful, and it had lasting good results, both for them and also for our relationship. And when I came back, I discovered that nothing had been taken from my bank account. So that had not gone well. There had been some misunderstanding. But then a few months later, I received some hereditary money and I was able to pay it off. But just to say that when one of your main purposes in life is to go through life with a sense of centeredness, and you train that in yourself, then when things get difficult, there is always something within you that remains untouched or free, from where you can make good choices to change the energy or not to do anything, to withhold or to step forward, whatever the choice is. But you need to have that preparation. There is a wonderful whisper from eternity from Master, and it starts like this. O King of Kings, train thou in me, in the camp of discipline, the noble qualities of calmness and self-control. Let them be thy divine general, like Krishna of yore, in the battle of the invading hordes of darkness, passion, and greed. And then it goes on, but I'll stop here. But just to say that there is a camp of discipline. So when there is no war and you have a good general, the general does not send his soldiers back home on furlough. Well, yes, maybe for a few weeks so they can spend time with their family, they can relax and rest, but then he calls them back because he needs to train them. If he doesn't do that and then the country is invaded, by evil forces, then he has soldiers that were not trained. So one might, in a way, consider our daily meditations as a training, so that we are prepared on the battlefield of life. Now, so on the one hand, you can say calmness is a psychological quality, okay? On the other hand, they say it is also a divine quality. It goes even further. Master says calmness is an essential quality of God. It is an aspect of God. So when we want to manifest God in our lives, it starts simple. We just try to be calm where before we lose our patience or our centeredness. And it starts simple, but then we try to train ourselves and do more and do more and more training, and then observe ourselves how we're doing on the battlefield of life. So there was one young disciple of Yogananda. Her name was Kamala Silva. And he gave her very clear, she was very young when she met him, maybe 16, but she was his disciple for the rest of her life. And he gave her very personal guidance, individual guidance. And he said that calmness is the principal attribute of the soul. So I'll repeat it. Calmness is the principal attribute of the soul. This means that for us in our spiritual life and in our psychological life, we want it to be an end in itself because it makes everything else possible. When there's calmness, love can become profound, deep. If there's no calmness, then in our relationship with the people that we love, there will be reactivity at some point. And the reactivity, emotional reactivity, and creates contraction. And so at that point, we're no longer completely there for the other. Instead, if we have calmness in our relationship, then our love can become profound and it can manifest itself in many, many different ways. Okay. So remember that we have to develop this quality as an end in itself. We can say it is the bodyguard of peace. Okay. Now, human nature being what it is, okay, there can be some challenges in this process. Okay. One of them is that we human beings tend to criticize ourselves. And so if we say, okay, I'm going to develop calmness, and then we fail, okay, instead of remaining calm, we start accusing ourselves because we have not been calm. We have lost our calmness. We've lost our temper or whatever. And so you have two problems there. Okay? The first one was I lost my temper, which is a completely normal and natural thing when that happens. You know, when you work with children, children are often a big appeal on our calmness and you know, so it's perfectly natural when that happens. But still, it's not what we want. So we want to be strong when we interact with our children, whether it's a teenager or a toddler or a student. We want to show our very best. We want to be our very best. So when you're tired, you know, sometimes you help yourself by taking some rest and taking a nap, for example. But when it becomes an end in itself, you know, and then you lose it, then you start accusing yourself and losing hope or losing hope and becoming pessimistic, like I can't do this. Then you have two problems. In accusing yourself, there is no calmness there. You're not being your happy self at that moment. And so it is so very, very, very important when you look at your own discipline to only and always encourage yourself, your own mind. Swami Kriyananda said it is good sometimes to speak to your mind as if you were speaking to a person. So one thing that you can do and that I do and that has worked for me and that I think from a psychological point of view can work for everyone. First of all, you need to accept that you have work to do, right? And this work takes place behind the scenes, mostly. At least you need to do some work behind the scenes when you're not on the battlefield, okay? So it's like an actor, you know, or a musician. He practices his parts. He memorizes his lines behind the scenes, right? So what can we do then when we are behind the scenes? We can talk to our own mind. We can observe and introspect on how this little soldier is doing. And there is a very important strategy in this process, and that is to put the emphasis on what you have done and not on what you have not done. And I'll give you an example. Suppose you wanted to meditate for an hour. You're very enthusiastic about the idea of, Master says meditate many hours every day, practice Hong Sau, do this, do that. And so you want to do that, right? But you are a father, you're a mother, or you're a grandmother, or you have a difficult life, or you have a busy life, and it just cannot be done. So we become frustrated and we lose our calmness. Now, what is the strategy behind the scenes? It is to keep an introspection diary, a journal, okay? And in that journal, you should only, but really only write what you did, not what you did not do, what you didn't do. So you write down what happened, what you did, and not what you didn't do. This translates into a often used image of looking at the glass that is half full and not half empty. And, you know, by traditional business people in the corporate world, for example, people who tend to look at the glass half full are considered to be little realistic, not very practical people, not very realistic people. Okay. People who look at the glass half empty, they spend many hours talking about the problems and then a little time also looking for solutions. But in reality, a new approach to psychology, I think it's called positive psychology. They say, if you focus on the glass half empty, you have nothing to build on. In Italy, they say you have fried air. You have nothing. Okay? If you look at what is inside the glass, even be it only one drop of water, then you have something. You have land, you have soil, you can plant a seed, and it's concrete. You know, you don't need to worry if it is very small. Think of a huge sequoia tree, as they have in the United States. They're like thousands of years old. There's, I think, in Yosemite Park, I saw one sequoia tree, and I think it was like 2,000 years old. Okay. Well, one day it started as a small, tiny little seed. And somehow circumstances were favorable to that seed. It got the right amount of sunlight, the right temperature, the right soil, the right amount of rain, and the seed could begin to sprout and become a sapling, and then a plant, and then a tree, and then a giant. Okay. So when you look at yourself at the end of the day, right, you do not want to look at what you did not do. You want to focus on what you did do. So if you wanted to meditate for half an hour and you meditated 15 minutes, you do not write down, oh, I wanted to meditate for half an hour and I didn't. You write down, I meditated for 15 minutes, and you celebrate. Okay? You focus on what has happened, on what has been done. Okay? There is always something good that we do during the day. It happens through us. It's just because spirit is in us. So it's impossible almost to get to the end of the day and nothing good has been done. As for us, it's completely impossible because we are on a spiritual path. We want to be, serviceful, strong, loving, creative, all these things. They are like tiny little sparks. Sometimes it's a tiny little seed. But if you, at the end of the day, are able to write down and focus only on what you have done, then you are making the soil fertile for seeds of spirituality to be planted and to be grown in your daily life. And it's not you. You're not even doing it yourself, you know. You're just allowing it to happen. And it is, it's like with seeds. You can say, okay, I have grown the plant. But in reality, you have just created circumstances that made growth possible. Now, if you had, you know, every day, for example, there's one thing that Master says, don't dig up, you know, you plant a seed and then you don't dig it up every day to see if it is sprouting. You let it be. Look at your own deeper soul as fertile soil, and then plant seeds of affirmation of things that you did, little things, even very small things, and then have the faith that those seeds will eventually sprout and that good things will happen in your life. All these things together bring calmness, and it's a process, and you can sort of monitor your progress by seeing how you do during the day. So suppose you have a reaction, okay? Because there is something that happens that you know that is like not your stronghold. And so it's easy that for something to happen that triggers an emotional reaction. So either you become irritated or you become angry, or you start crying, whatever the type of emotion is. You look at it at the end of the day, and you look at its intensity. Okay? And if, as a result of the work that you do, your meditation, your prayer, your pranayama, your kriya, if you see that it has even gone down 1/10 of a millimeter, okay, then there is reason to celebrate. Often we grow and we just don't know that we are growing, because it's not we who are doing the job, it's divine grace that enters and wants to enter our life. And what we need to do, yoga has been defined as cooperation with grace. So we need to relax emotionally and mentally, and then good things will happen. Okay. There was something else, let me think, that I wanted to say that has to do with all this. No, it doesn't come, but maybe it will come later. So anyway, to summarize what we've said so far, calmness is the principal attribute of the soul. It needs to be trained within us. When you look at yourself and you do your introspection, okay, look at what you've done and don't look at what you have not done. Okay? Encourage yourself, monitor your reactions. See, even if you have an emotional reaction, was it really that bad? And withdraw. Okay. Now, there's one other strategy, and now I remember what I wanted to say, that helps a lot. So when we look at, this is a little philosophical in the beginning, but then it becomes very, very practical. When we look at nature, right, one of the characteristics of nature is that it never stops moving. It always moves. Okay. So, for example, during the day, okay, you can see the movements, and most of the creatures are awake, and You can see them, you can see the birds fly, you can see the wind in the trees, you can hear people running, see people running from left and right and everywhere. And then the night comes, right? And then apparently most people go to sleep, animals withdraw to sleep. But during the night, there is still a lot of activity. You know, the stars are glittering. There are lots of night owls and animals that are active during the night. It never, ever stops. Okay? There is chronic restlessness. And we are a part of that. Okay? So that in itself is in a way also a consolation, right? You cannot, you're part of it. So calmness is just not the easiest quality to develop in your life, even though it is the most important one, but it's not the easiest. So what helps then? Well, let's first start on a deeper level of meditation. When we practice the Hong Sau technique of concentration, right? The instructions are a few. There are actually 3. So watch the breath, right? Watch the breath. First, maybe the respiratory movements of the body, then become more subtle. Watch the more subtle aspects, the wind, the air, going in and out of the nostrils. First instruction. Second instruction, when the breath comes in, the incoming breath, mentally chant Hong. When it goes out, mentally chant Sau. That's the second instruction. The third instruction is to enjoy the pauses between 2 breaths. And that is a moment of stillness. That is a moment where you might say you escape from the disease of restlessness that characterizes nature. And it's like when you think of a swing, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. There is a moment where it doesn't go up anymore, but it doesn't go down yet. So the upgoing movement stops there. The power, the strength that brings the swing up is finished, but the downward pulling gravitational force hasn't started yet. And so there's in between. There's one moment where the body is basically weightless. So you have a child on a swing, and no wonder that he likes it. You know, when he's up there, he feels my body is no burden. It is light as air. Okay. So these are the moments that we want to capture and appreciate and value. You can do the same when you practice energizing, okay? Because the instruction is not tense and relax. The instruction is tense, relax, and feel. So between 2, so a good rule is always insert a second or 2 or 3 or 4 between 2 of the energization exercises. Because the ability to listen, this is when that is again a moment of stillness. And that is when we are again, beyond the disease of restlessness. And what happens during those moments, both in the Hong Sau technique and when we energize, in those moments of stillness, the soul quality of intuition is born. And that is what feeds our calmness. It brings faith. And with faith comes inner strength and calmness. So you can do the same. You can, and this is what Swami recommends, you can transfer these moments into your daily rhythms and then into your weekly, monthly, and yearly rhythms. So you can translate them into your daily rhythm by inserting short moments of stillness between one activity and another. So suppose you're cleaning your house, okay? And so you have like your to-do list says house needs cleaning, shopping needs to be done, emails need to be read and written for your work maybe. So you do those three things, right? But before you start and after you stop, always take a minute to straighten your back, your backbone, okay, to withdraw your shoulder blades, and practice Hong Sau for a minute or 2 or 3 or 4. I have in my office, it's a small office, but I'm extremely grateful that I have it. I have my own board there as well. So before I need to write a newsletter or an email or whatever, I often just sit, do a little Hong Sau, and then listen, use my own board and listen for the sound of Om. But I always try even between one email and another, between one message, SMS, WhatsApp message and another, always try to insert that little breath, that little moment of stillness. Okay? So this is for your daily activities, but you can also make plans for Bye Surya, take care, Jai Guru, and it's being recorded, I think. So maybe you can later listen to the rest. Great that you could be there. See you. So, excuse me. Where was I? So, oh yes, you can also think of your longer rhythms. And this is also very, very important for the development of the quality of calmness in our life. Because psychological growth is largely also regulated by the planet Saturn, which is in astrology. And we know that yoga includes also Vedic astrology. The planet Saturn that governs our first chakra. And it is the planet of slow learning karmic lessons over a long period of time. Okay. So when we are, just working on ourselves, on our psychological, mental, and emotional growth, and therefore also on our spiritual growth, it is important to tune into long-term rhythms of growth in your life. You cannot just say, okay, I'm going to do this. I have in my mind a habit of playing music, classical music that I love and that I grew up with. Okay? And it is just, that music is so much part of my sentimental or emotional nature. It's just part of me, Brahms and Beethoven. And it's just, and then especially violin music, of course, right? But it doesn't help me, quite the opposite. It's something that I feel to be a remnant of previous, karma, old karma. And so I'm working on it. Now, I know that this is going to take time. And when I practice the violin, try to practice the violin a little bit every day, okay? And when I play, also, I need to look at my mind and keep it under control. And then again, good things happen. The mind is calm, the ego is not there, and the hands are moving, and sound is coming out, and good things are happening. So, but I know that this is going to take time because I've developed this habit over years and years and years. Another thing that I say to myself is when I use this Om board, right? I say, I want to listen. I want to hear your voice, Divine Mother. I'm not, I mean, I'm grateful for all the beautiful music that you have given me in my life. And it's deep and it has shaped many beautiful feelings deep in my heart. And it's part of my consciousness. And I'm grateful for that. But I want to hear your voice. And I can only do that if the other music in my head, you know, if it is turned down, if the volume is turned down, then I can start listening. And so I can feel that this is slowly, slowly, slowly changing something within me. And I accept that it is a slow process. Okay, so that too brings wonderful calmness if you look at yourself and you look at your child. I mean, Shambhavi has I think 2 years now, 2-year-old child. You don't tell him, to read this book to me. It would be ridiculous. Of course he can read a book. You look where he is. You see where is he? What can he do now? And he's taking care of a lot of that himself by exercising his body and moving and trying things out, and by repeating the words that his mom says or that his father says. But of course you're not going to ask the child to do things that he cannot do because he's not ready. So the same with our mind. When we look at our own mind, we want to start where we are and accept where we are, and that there are certain psychological kinks or issues that still need to be, solved or loosened or whatever. So self-acceptance also brings a lot of calmness in your life. Just accept where you are. And again, I've said it many times. I think of it every Sunday when I go to our Sunday service. The coin of redemption is calm, acceptance, and joy. So acceptance and calmness go together. You accept things as they are. You accept yourself, not what you are, but where you are. Okay, so I say, this I cannot do. Accept it, and then see what you can do. Okay. Okay, so I think, that sort of sums it all up, I hope. And maybe now you can say something and share something. I'm talking a lot, 45 minutes or something. Feel free to ask questions or to share or, share your thoughts or experiences.
Yeah, Hansa and Sonia, if you want to share something or ask something. Darshan, are you able to hear us now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
I do, but it's gonna I hope lead to Darshan talking a little bit more. Darshan, recently you mentioned to me a quote from Swami Kriyananda about patience, and so you're talking about this quality of calm, but there's also this underlying aspect in what you're saying about patience. So can you share that quote that Swami Sri Yukteswar said about patience?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up because it's very, very inspiring and interesting. Basically, in yoga, Patanjali's yoga, one of the steps, we call it niyama, right? One of the steps that bring spiritual growth is tapasya, topos. We were in Puri, in Sri Yukteswar's ashram, and there was the head Swami who that ashram is now owned and managed by descendants of Swami Ananda. And so there was this Swami there, and he gave us a satsang, and he spoke a little English, but he kept talking about topos. And what is topos? And it meant tapasya. Okay, so that was funny. In any case, Sri Yukteswar calls tapasya patience. He calls it holy patience. And then he says, so in the most applicable or representative example is we sit down to meditate, right? So we sit down to meditate, but then you think, well, I'd like to make some coffee. That would be my thing. Okay. I'd like to have a boiled egg for breakfast, right? So what does the yogi do? He sits. He sits there. He doesn't stand up. Okay? He allows those thoughts to be there, but because you cannot repress your thoughts, but you can ignore them. So this requires patience, right? Just to sit there and not stand up. And thank God you also do something positive. You focus on the breath, or you do Kriya yoga, you practice Kriya yoga, or you focus the mind at the point between the eyebrows. Those are all things that are part of our instructions. But part of it is also just not to stand up, to be patient, to sit there. And Swami Kriyananda says that holy patience purifies our astral body. Okay, so the capacity to endure, pressure of time purifies our electrical, he then calls it electrical body. And later master changes that, he says it's the astral body, it's the same. But on a very pure level, we are on a very subtle level, patience purifies us. So the best time to train patience, in my view, there's two things about it. So one is patience is the shortest route to God. That is a saying, right? You never think, oh, I wish I had God already. You can think that, but it doesn't help. But patience always helps. So patience is the shortest route to God. So that's one thing. And then there is something else, that concentration kills time. Okay. So maybe I've told this story, but years ago I was part of the meditation group in Rome, and we invited one of the Ananda Assisi ministers, Jayadev, to come and lead a long meditation. I think it was 5 hours. It was around Christmas. And we knew our group members, and we thought, they need an outline. It cannot be you sit down and sit still for 5 hours. There has to be a pause, and there has to be some chanting and maybe some poetry. But Jayadev was probably in a very austere mood or something. So he came, and I think we gave him the outline, but he didn't even look at it. And he started playing his guitar and sing, and we sang, and then entered meditation. I think he meditated for 2 hours right away, for 2 or 3 hours in a row. And then he chanted something, and then he said one thing. He says, don't worry about the time. If you concentrate, time doesn't exist. So this helps also to say that concentration kills time, or concentration focus makes you transcend time. And that in itself is a purification. Okay. Now, there are actually two ways to forget about time. One is, like we said, you meditate and you focus, you concentrate. And another time when we forget about time is when we sleep, okay? Or when we are satisfying some desire. So you have a desire to, I don't know, buy beautiful clothes and you spend the whole afternoon running from one shop to another. You don't look at your watch. You're having a good time. Okay. Or also when you are busy with fillers. So you're spending the evening as a couch potato, right? As they call it. Just watching one program after the other. And, and so those are subconscious ways of escaping time. Okay? But there's the problem with that is that there is no growth behind it. There is no involvement of willpower, even sleep. I mean, sleep is wonderful. And thank God, our Heavenly Father has given us sleep because that it gives us a respite of constant demands of the material world. So we can be thankful for that. But when we constantly sleep to escape reality, then it doesn't help. Okay. So the other way to overcome time is meditation or deep concentration on whatever it is that you do. I've really seen in myself also that when I study something, a text, time has a certain speed. But when I write something, I forget about time. And I stop writing and 2 hours have passed like nothing. So if you can find things that make you enthusiastic, that you can be passionate about, and then you can experience this wonderful type of absorption. And that also kills time. But it is important to remember from a disciplinary point of view these words by Swami Kriyananda. So tapasya is important for our psychological strength and growth and learning to live, balance and calmness. And it consists in holy patience, and that purifies our subtle astral body. Is that what you were thinking of, Hansa?
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Darshan.
It's very powerful, I think. So, anyone else wants to say something? Sonia? ¿Quieres decir algo?
Quiero decir muchas cosas.
Okay.
When the right time comes. First of all, thank you for being here and for
Thank
sharing.
you.
It's always nice to listen
You're in
to
Houston
you.
right now?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm learning more and more patience through this process of losing my husband recently and dealing with this materialistic world everywhere, with calls, with paperwork, all this stuff.
That hasn't finished yet?
No, it doesn't. But it will eventually. It will finish.
Absolutely.
What it helps me about patience recently is not to think about future, not to think about future. I mean, it's just, for me now, future doesn't exist because, I get impatient about, oh, I have this project, I want to do this, I want to go to India, I want to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, stop. Let's see what it's got planned. And I know, my Dharma I know a little bit about my Dharma, but let's see, one step at a time. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying not to think about the future. Yeah.
Sounds like you have a good strategy.
Mm-hmm. Patience is the strategy.
Yeah. But also, like what you say, that there is something, I don't know if this takes us off topic, I don't think so. But after my operation, my surgery, okay, and I had surgery because my liver was not working well. And so after the operation, after the surgery, I naturally, became interested in, like long-term solutions for that liver thing. So I came upon one book about glucose and sugar in general, and what it does to your blood, and to your mind as well. So this is why I'm saying this. So when I started to take, to use less and less sugar or glucose in my diet, I knew that my body was burning fat and no longer sugar. Okay, so sugar is can be compared to gasoline, and fat can be compared to diesel. Diesel, if you throw a match in a recipient with diesel, it will not burn. You have to keep the match or the fire much longer there. If you throw it in gasoline, then it will immediately blaze. So that, there was like a metabolic flexibility in my system, but it changed something in this absence of sugar in my brain changed also something on a psychological level. And what you say, not thinking of the future, I was much more able to, in my daily life, to accept the little things in life that I had to do, and to do them with more awareness. I don't know, let me give an example, just cleaning something or putting away your clothes, those really everyday things that I would be very hasty about. Biochemistry that I'm beginning to understand can even be, in a way, almost stronger than willpower, because it is in the brain that it happens. And so we need to also be aware of the biochemistry of the brain, like dopamine, what happens with dopamine, what does dopamine do to the brain, and sugar, blood sugar. So I just wanted to add this. It's not officially the teachings, but and I was reminded of it because you said that, Sonia, you said that you just don't think about the future. You're just here and now. This needs doing. Do it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Darshan, you said you don't know if what you were saying is applicable. I would say it is. Next week, for the first time, I will go see a nutritionist to talk about managing glucose. So you've given me some food for thought on that as well. And I also, after this conversation, I am beginning to see patience as a gift, in fact, something that we can give to ourselves. And in the context of our children, I think that it's one of the greatest gifts, in fact, that we can give them is just to be patient with them in those moments that normally might trigger all that emotion. So thank you again for talking about that too.
Very good. All right, my friends, I think it's time now. We've been here for over an hour.
Thank you so much, Darshan.
Thank you, Shambhavi, for organizing it. I think these are important things. They're wonderful. It was a beautiful theme also to talk about. So, and it's been recorded, so you can share. Feel free to share it with anyone you like. It doesn't matter to me. All right.
Thank you.